Hi, this is my review of Earth Reborn. Earth Reborn is one of the greatest board games that I have ever played in my life. There's really nothing like it up to date. I will try to do my best in explaining what I like about this board game. I'm not going to go through all the components, I'm going to focus on my experience with the game. And even if you are not into board games, if you are more into role-playing games, I think that you will find some very nice things in Earth Reborn. Many tiles and miniatures and tokens that you can use in role-playing games. Well, let's talk about the quality of the components and the contents of Earth Reborn, what the game is about, the rules, etc. Well, first of all, you have this pretty big box. It's somewhat heavy, and it's very sturdy. A lot of people have said that the art on the box looks like the cover of a heavy metal album. So this is a post-apocalyptic board game. Now let's talk about what you find inside the box. First of all, you have a plastic insert. I won't be able to show it to you, but it's kind of like there are different compartments, and they almost resemble like a sort of like a puzzle box, because you have so many things in this box. You have a lot of tiles and tokens and such. Here are some of the tiles. As you can see, they represent areas like the board of the game or like the battlefield. They are double-sided. This side has more of like contaminated grass aspect, and the other one is like sort of like a base or factory. Because this is a post-apocalyptic board game, everything feels wrecked and pollution is everywhere. And these tiles are really handy. They are very thick. And as I was telling you, if you play role-playing games that have to do with the post-apocalypse, maybe the mutant epoch or the mutant future, the coming for Mifarok, many games, you can use these tiles to represent the battlefield if you like to play with miniatures. Now, let me show you some of these miniatures that they come unpainted, but they already have a layer of paint that is they are primed for painting, because as you well know, the plastic sometimes doesn't get along with the paint. The paint doesn't get a good grip on the plastic, and you have to put these layers so that it's more easy to paint. And I already painted the miniatures. I actually would have liked it if they didn't come with a primer, because I think it took a bit away from the detail of the miniatures. So here, let me show you one of my favorite miniatures, and this is the mammoth. It's a mecha, and this one is just devastating up close and from a distance. It specializes in breaking down walls and doors, does a lot of damage, and you can even hijack it if you are playing the antagonist or the enemy of this faction, which is NORAD. You can actually take control of the robot that is kill or capture the pilot inside and get inside the mecha, and now you have a mecha on your side. And you also have this is one of the bad guys of the Salemite faction. This is Jessica Hollister. You also have some zombies from that faction. Zombies aren't really that strong. They are decent, but the cool thing about the zombies is that you can resurrect them through a special serum. As you can see, these miniatures have a multicolored base. You can see it better here with the mammoth. And this base that comes with a gun and different colors, orange, red, blue, etc., marks different arcs when it comes to close quarters fighting and shooting, and which side of that miniature is more vulnerable to attacks and such. You also have, this is James Wu, I think he was called. An obvious reference to the John Woo film, those like Gung Fu films where they use two guns, one gun in each hand. And you also have this guy, this is Jeff Diller. He specializes in controlling zombies that have already been created with the serum. And you have Professor Kendall. He's the one who's going to specialize in creating zombies and also creating deadly viruses to directly harm the characters. And this is Cherokee Bill, and he's kind of like a Native American with a flamethrower. He has a very interesting mechanic. He's actually a traitor of the Salamite forces. He's actually a part of the NORAD forces, and you can activate a rule so that he comes to your side if you're playing as the NORAD forces. You have Vasquez, and she's the sniper of the NORAD faction. She's actually able to seduce other characters such as Frank Einstein. So she uses her curves to bring that guy to your side. That's pretty cool. This is Nick Bolter. He's like the leader of the NORAD team, and he's pretty good overall. You have Frank Einstein, who I was telling you he's from the bad guy faction, the Silamites. But as I was telling you, Vasquez can actually seduce him so that he fights on your side. He's pretty powerful up close. And you also have one of the other bad guys, which is the Jacksaw. As you can see, his arm is kind of like a saw, quite bloody and dangerous up close. He's also pretty good at destroying walls and doors. The game also comes with this sort of like a game master screen, one for each player. This game can be played with up to 4 players, but it works better with 2 in my opinion. And because this game has a lot of hidden information, details such as secret missions and command points, bits, and assigning orders, so you have to keep those things hidden away. And it comes with a lot of things. You have your package of dice and many different tokens marking explosions, damage, radioactive areas, areas contaminated with viruses. You have dice to perform espionage maneuvers and searching around different bases. There are just a lot of tokens, and as I was telling you, many different tiles representing areas. I will show you some of the maps as I review the books. You can have like a little sack, because there are moments where you have to randomize the orders and things that you get without knowing what you are going to get. So that's for that purpose. And you also have cards for the different characters with all the different stats, with special abilities. You also have item cards. This one allows you to heal yourself. It's morphine. But you also have like machine guns and bazookas, etc. Now let's talk about the game itself. These 2 rulebooks, the Rules of Play book and the Background and Scenarios book, they work together to teach you how to play the game, because the game is just it's quite deep and complex. You really have to learn it little by little. So for example, let me tell you some of the things that you can do with your character, because at its essence, this is a skirmish game, but it's more like an objective-based game. So you're going to be moving your miniatures. You'll be able to make close combat attacks, ranged attacks, but you will also have details on line of sight. Sometimes you are more vulnerable from one area of your miniature if you get attacked from behind or from the side. And fighting in close quarters feels quite lethal. You always get counter-attacked. Well, it depends on the side as well, but most of the time there's going to be a counter-attack, especially if your opponent has command points. And before we go further, let me talk about command points. Command points are the resource or the fuel that you're going to use to carry out different orders. And you're going to be using these command tiles that you can see here, and you assign these tiles to each of your miniatures or your characters each turn. And as you can see, there are different colors. So for example, black is like the standard action, and the numbers represent the number of command points that you can assign to each order. And the more points that you assign, usually it's that action is better, more powerful, more useful. But you also have the colors such as like yellow, which is for cooperative actions. That is, if you're attacking a character and one of your other characters is nearby and within line of sight, you may actually trigger that character to do another action at the same time, perhaps shooting at that same enemy, or maybe moving across the room, or searching around for a document or weapons or gear or whatever. And so it represents a sort of like a way that your partner or comrade is distracting the enemy while you do something else. And the red icon represents something that you can use to interrupt an opponent's actions. For example, maybe your opponent wants to get from one side of the corridor to the other side, and you have that opponent on your line of sight arc. You may actually use the red order to interrupt his action and perhaps move towards him and attack him, or shoot at him, or maybe even doing something unrelated. Maybe when you see your opponent, you make a move action and you get into a room and you start searching around. So that's quite useful. That's a lot of versatility to each turn. There are many things that you can do each turn. And you can carry out duels, which consists on bidding command points to see who wins the initiative or the priority for a particular action or turn. But well, that's the tricky part, because your command points are limited. So let's say that someone bids 3 command points and the other player bids 5. The player who spent 5 command points is going to have the priority during that turn. But maybe he shouldn't have spent so many command points, but because now he cannot do as many things as he would have wanted to do. And you can also carry different equipment like weapons, armor, interesting devices. You have like a radio disruptor and many like computers, and all of those devices and gadgets and such will give you an advantage throughout the mission, or maybe will give you some mission points that allow you to win that mission. As I was telling you can shoot. Each weapon has different values and attacks. You can use explosive weapons. And one of the cool things of this game is that everything, when it comes to the special abilities and properties of weapons, the different rooms on the map, because all of the things that you find in the map, there's usually something that you can do. You can activate different things. Here in the patient room, if you have a character who is pretty good at science, you can activate what is in this room so that you can heal one of your characters. And many things, almost everything in the battlefield can be destroyed. Walls, machinery, and you can get rid of obstacles. You also have smoke grenades to interfere the line of sight of your opponent. And there are just so many ways that you can interact with everything, and you have those small icons that you saw are kind of like these ones. And here in your screen you have the meaning of each icon. and you can easily read what that room or that item does, because first it looks somewhat difficult. You're going to say, oh no, I'm going to have to memorize all those things, or I'm going to look them up all the time, but it's actually not that hard. The way they teach you the rules is it's actually quite easy, surprisingly easy. And then you have you can do search actions, as I was telling you. Now when it comes to spying and searching, it's actually really cool, because some rooms like warehouses or laboratories and such, they have different icons that allow you to, it marks that room as a place where you can search for weapons, etc. And you have this deck of cards. It's double-sided, and depending on the dice that you roll, you can actually flip the deck around, or you can shuffle it, so it actually feels like you are searching for a particular weapon or item. Some missions need you to find a particular document, so you're not just going to be taking the first card. You're going to have your cards here, and you'll have to be flipping them around and searching them, and there's a limit to that, as I was telling you, depending on the symbols that you rolled. So it actually feels like you're desperately trying to find that before your opponent. That's pretty cool. And you also have special abilities for each character, because as I was telling you, for example, this mammoth, he's able to destroy walls quite easily, but you also have some other, like for example, Jessica Hollister, she's kind of like a very stern leader of sorts. She's actually able to get you some command points depending on what you do with her. And you also have Jeff Wu, or James Wu, sorry, I keep forgetting the name. Let's see if I can find it later on. And this guy, he's a pretty good spy. He's actually specializes in getting things, searching and spying. So when it comes to performing radio scrambling, you can also capture other characters and torturing them. You can do so many things. And torturing other characters actually gives you mission points, and sometimes it's crucial depending on the scenario. There are just a lot of things. You can go up and down multiple levels, perhaps basements or climbing up a tower. And at the end of this rulebook, you have a glossary detailing all of the special abilities and powers, if you ever have any questions about how to use them. And let's talk about how the game teaches you the rules. You have this background and scenarios book, and they give you the story of Earth Reborn. They tell you all the plot line, the entire timeline, which is quite extensive, but it's basically 3 powers in the year 2035. They go into all-out war with each other. You basically have the Industrial Coalition, which is kind of like the industrial presence, and you have the Shadow Forces, which are kind of like the rebels, and you have the Greenpeace Kugel Alliance, which is obviously a reference to Greenpeace, because here it's written as piece, like piece of a puzzle, and Kugel is obviously Google, so they create this terrible war, and the planet becomes this radioactive mess, and the environment is messed up, and everyone goes underground with these sort of like city bunkers. And the 2 forces are the NORAD faction. This is Nick Bolter of the miniature that I showed you a while ago. It's James Wu, Agent James Wu. And you also have Vasquez, that is kind of like the sniper and the sex appeal of the faction. And the Mammoth. Let me see if I can get that into focus. It's a bit difficult. And that's a really cool ability of her, that she can seduce the enemies. And on the evil side, you have the Silomites. So the feeling that I got from the 2 factions is that NORAD has that sort of like freedom fighter type of feeling. They have discipline and high technology and good nutrition. And the Selamite faction feels like all of those, the 2 forces represent the United States. And the Selamite faction represents sort of like the occult orders or sorcerer's powers that appear in fiction behind the US. So you have Professor Kendall, They have that serum that resurrects zombies, and Jessica Hollister, Frank Einstein. You have Jeff Diller. And Jeff Diller is an example of bad nutrition because of all those that they modify the foods and such. He has a very terrible digestion, and you actually gain mission points when you take him to the bathroom. It depends on the scenario, but most of the time he either starts at the toilet or you take him to the bathroom and you gain mission points because of that. And you have Cherokee Bill. Let's see if I can get it. That's the traitor that I was telling you about. And you have the Jack Saw and zombies. And then you have all those missions that tell a story, the confrontation between the two forces, the Norads and the Salemmites. This is actually a complete map of how things look while you are playing the game. It's just a huge map with a lot of obstacles and things that block line of sight. And you build different maps. So, for example, if you compare that map to this one, you will see that it's quite different, the layout of the map. The missions are pretty cool. So, for example, in the first mission, they teach you just how to move and attack up close. It's called The Beauty and the Beast, and it's basically Vasquez captured, and you have to play as lust-driven Frank Einstein to release her. Jeff Diller, here he says, "Time to set things straight with this ungrateful beast and his unnatural urges." So you play as if you're the NORAD player, you're actually playing as Frank Einstein. And then you have a scenario 2, which is in an abandoned, well, not abandoned, it's like an old church. And you have to escape before the Salemmites kill your characters. You're actually outnumbered. And then you have scenario 3, which is target Professor John Kendall, and you have to stop the professor from releasing a virus. You have scenario 4, the Vault. I think that this one, you have to kill someone. You have to retrieve the US Constitution. And then you have Fortress Primus, which is about getting mission points by fulfilling different objectives. You have scenario Traitors, which has to do with the traitor rules that I was telling you, that you can activate Cherokee Bill to come to your side if you are the NORAD player. You have scenario 7, which is Contamination, has to do with the deadly virus markers. There's also a scenario where you have to rescue James Wu, who was captured and he's being tortured. All of the scenarios have different objectives and they're quite interesting, and they teach you the rules little by little. You won't have too much trouble understanding how to play the game. After you play a single scenario once, you're going to know exactly how everything works. Well, let me tell you what I think of Earth Reborn. I think this is one of the best board game experiences that I've ever had. There's just so much for you to do. And before we get to that, I was almost forgetting, once you are done with the scenarios, you have a mode of play called the SAGS, or SAGS, which is a scenario. Let me see if I can find that here. Scenario auto-generating system. And this basically allows you to build a map with your opponents, and then you carry out different missions depending on the cards that you get. So maybe one card requires you to assassinate or capture a specific character or torture that character, or maybe you need to go into a room and launch a nuclear missile, or maybe you need to retrieve some documents or items, etc. All the missions are random and secret, and that's another aspect of the secret of the gameplay, designed around secrecy, that you must not let your opponents know what mission you got, because, for example, if they all know that you need to kill this specific character to gain mission points, well, they're going to protect that character as much as they can. So it's all about secrecy and bluffing. Well, as I was telling you, this is one of the greatest board games that I have ever played in my life. There are just so many things, so many options. You never feel like you are at a lack of possibilities of what you can do this turn or this round. Anything that you can think of, you can try. If there's a wall, you can try to destroy it. Maybe you can try to torture a character to gain information. Maybe you want to capture the mecha of the enemy to have better firepower and overall more combat, an edge in the battlefield. You can do almost anything that you can imagine, and some things are quite unlikely. Some make sense, like the launching a nuclear missile, but taking Jeff Dealer to the toilet to gain command points, that's pretty funny. And so there are just so many things that you can do. It's almost overwhelming. And here is what I would consider, well, it's not that it's a negative thing, but they are important considerations. Getting someone to play this game with, because, for example, of all the time that I had this game, I had it for what, 6 years or 7 years. I don't remember how long I've had this game, but I haven't played it as much as I wanted to. I actually got lucky and I did find a person, and like everything just clicked. The stars were right because our schedules matched and we started playing. We played through the 9 or 10 scenarios and the sax scenario mode of play, and we had a lot of fun. It was an incredible experience. But that person was really in love with the post-apocalyptic theme. Mad Max and all of that. But with other people that I have played this with, they find the rules too overwhelming. I think that they instead of seeing all the things that you can do as options, they saw it like things that they had to do all at once, and they couldn't handle it. So that's key to enjoying this game. You have so many things that you can do, and so many possibilities, and so many powers, and so many abilities and all that, but you don't have to think that you have to use them all. They're just there in case you want to use them. And if you get through that, this is one of the best board game experiences that you will have. It's certainly food for something that exercises your brain, because this is very intelligently designed, and it's very fun to match your wits against another player. That brings us to another point. If you, for example, you didn't have someone who enjoys the post-apocalyptic theme and doesn't like deep and complex rules, you will have a hard time playing this solo, because there are just so many things related to secrecy, the command points, the orders that you will assign, the missions. So in order for you to actually play this game as a solitary experience, you would have to create some type of system to randomize the different command points, the missions. If only the most experienced board gamers and war gamers should attempt to create such a system to play this as a solo experience. It's not impossible, but it's going to be quite difficult, and it's not going to be as satisfying as playing with another person. So you should definitely take that into consideration. But on another looking at it from another angle, this game is also great because it gives you a lot of miniatures for role-playing games. If you like to use miniatures in your post-apocalypse or science fiction or science fantasy games, you're going to find them here, and all those tiles and tokens that you can use to mark different conditions and attacks. So I would only recommend this game to someone who thinks that he will be able to find someone to play this game with, and who can use the tiles and miniatures for other games, because otherwise it could be one of those really cool games with a deep system that are just stashed away because you can't find an opportunity to play this game. But I would highly recommend that you get this one if you love post-apocalypse and if you like deep, complex, rich systems, because this game is incredible. I actually think that this was going to be designed with expansions in mind, but it's been quite some time since this came out, and I haven't seen any expansion, so it's a bit sad that we didn't get other factions and more miniatures. But with all that comes with the box, it's more than a complete gaming experience. It's practically endless in terms of replayability because of the random scenario and mission generation system. So if you're looking for everything that I described, definitely get Earth Reborn. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.